Hello and welcome to Generation XG for an hour of cutting-edge data and analysis as the Premier League delivered yet another weekend of enthralling action.
And Carlton Morris with the chance to make it 1-1. And Morris scores.
Mateus Nunes, he looks to leave it for Holland! Manchester City double their lead.
Clever ball, Calvert-Lewin, 3-1 Everton. An opportunity for Fernandes to take it on, and take it on he did. Now Spurs winning it back, Son is in, it's 2-2. Wow.
Mr. Pina flips in across Matoma!
Now here's Watkins, really good challenge by Colwell, and Watkins has done it!
Robertson sends it a swirling corner, Van Dijk down! Turned in by Jota!
Isak is after this, it's Isak! Coolly done, this is a day Newcastle United will never forget.
Pace setters Manchester City continued their winning form after a 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest, while neighbours Manchester United got back to winning ways after their victory at Burnley. Sean Dyche's Everton got their first win of the season, beating Brentford 3-1 at the G-Tech. On Sunday, we were treated to a pulsating North London derby with Arsenal and Tottenham taking a point apiece, while Chelsea's poor form continued after another loss under Maurizio Pochettino. However, the standout result of the weekend comes from Bramall Lane, when Newcastle thrashed newly promoted Sheffield United. It's 6 out of 6 for Manchester City at the top of the table after their win at home to Nottingham Forest, while Liverpool, Arsenal and Spurs remain unbeaten in the chasing pack alongside high-flying Brighton. At the bottom, Sheffield United, Luton, Burnley and Bournemouth remain winless, while Everton shot up the table after their first win. Chelsea's lacklustre start means that they languish in 14th spot. And the North London derby is where we will start in part one after a dramatic 2-2 draw at the Emirates. With finally having both strikers available, Everton had one of the standout performances of the weekend, and we'll take a look how that result has been coming in part two. Newcastle inflicted Sheffield United with their heaviest defeat in their league history with an 8-0 drubbing at Bramall Lane. We'll analyse what went wrong in part three. And who better to talk all things North London than legendary Spurs striker Jermaine Defoe. Jermaine, welcome to the show. And as always, Leroy, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Who are you looking forward to hear from yourself?
Well, do you know what, Leon? It's all about that North London derby. Arsenal and Tottenham, what a tremendous game. But I think Tottenham fans, it felt a little bit more to you than Arsenal fans. But let me know using the hashtag PLFans.
Well, let's get straight into it, Jermaine. North London, the derby. Probably the favourite fixture in that area of the season. Did it live up to the billing?
I think it did, to be honest, in terms of the hype of the game and the size of the game, especially with, obviously, both teams being in a good place. I think Tottenham were really brave. I don't think that over the years there's been many times where I think the Tottenham team have gone to Arsenal and you know, been that comfortable with the ball. You see here in the first clip where, you know, the modern day game when you're asking your fullbacks to play in the middle of the pitch. I think to do that you have to be brave and play it from the back. I thought they did that really well, but it was a really good game.
Well, it was. Well, let's take a look at how Arsenal, both teams started the game, and I think both teams started how they wanted to. I think Arsenal wanted to press, Spurs wanted to take the ball. Did you think one team was more successful in the first 15, 20 minutes of the game?
Yeah, of course, Arsenal being at home, they're going to be aggressive and on the front foot. The fans demand that, you know. And like I mentioned before about, you know, Tottenham being really brave. There was times where you could see where you thought, OK, then maybe you'd hit the front line. But still, you know, decided to play out and show a lot of personality, to be honest, which is probably something that the manager wants. You know, I think his messages are, even if you make mistakes, continue doing it, which is good.
Well, I agree. I thought Spurs were terrific, but I think we're going to start by showing Arsenal's press, because I don't know if Arsenal would have believed that Spurs would have come and took the ball as they did, so they had to react. And I thought they were pretty good in their press. I thought that's where they got a lot of their success early in the game. You see players all really tight, players into position, even Zinchenko stepping in, people prepared to leave themselves 1v1. just trying to make sure that Spurs didn't get a good foothold in the game. Arsenal, I thought, were brave in their press.
Yeah, and then and maybe, you know, a lot of teams would hit the front line, but you see here, I think that's Basuma here with the ball. Someone who's been really good. And just being brave, just keep playing. You don't necessarily have to hit the front line. If we're good enough to beat the press and you show that sort of quality, then you know, that's something that the manager wants.
Yeah, I think it is, and you know, you see quite clearly very early in the game, winning the ball back. I think Arsenal prepared to step in all over the field, and it takes a certain kind of bravery to leave yourselves man for man at the back of the pitch and be prepared to not worry about what's behind you. And I think Arsenal did that quite regularly. Spurs gave them the opportunity to press, but just seeing that from Odegaard, highlight here in this position, and that's Gabriel stepping all the way through from the defensive unit just to make sure that his team weren't outnumbered in the middle of the pitch.
I do think if you can do that, if you are going to be brave and you're willing to take the ball, and you know, we're not going to go long, we're going to try and beat the press, and then you get the ball in some interesting areas, you know, in between the lines where, you know, your forward players can make the difference. And I thought that Tottenham did that really well.
Oh, they did. But in the early part of the game, before they got the momentum, I think Arsenal got quite a bit of joy, as we've just seen. Spurs just getting caught in possession on two occasions. Arsenal creating big chance. That's a big save, that early in the game.
Massive. But I think you have to, you know, weather the storm a little bit. You know, you're playing against a top Arsenal team, and at some stages they are going to create chances. You're going to have to take risks if that's, you know, how you want to play. And, you know, that was a brilliant save there. But, again, that shows how aggressive Arsenal are going to be, you know, when they spring off that. And when they, you know, on the regains, they're really dangerous. You know, you've got bodies flooding forward. But, again, you see Tottenham here. In terms of recovery runs, you know, everyone's getting back in their shape. Just that discipline, the other side of the game, that people don't talk about.
Yeah, but this is what you can't really allow, is it? You know, as we just see. I might even take that back just to show you. Yeah. You know, you see Brennan Johnson up against White, the Ben White there. There's a 1v1 situation. There's also a 1v1 situation in that area. You've got to sort that out. You've either got to have Brennan Johnson following the run or going to Saka, and exactly the same for Udogie. But there's got to be communication in that position.
Yeah, you have to speak in that situation, especially when someone like Saka gets it there. We see it so many times when he comes inside, you know, when he finds up top corner. But, you know, he's a 1v1 specialist. You know, there's not too many of them in the game now. And, you know, when he gets it in those sort of areas, it's so difficult to stop when he comes inside. And then when he does come inside, you know, he always seems to make the right decision.
I think, if anything, we're probably surprised that didn't end up in the top corner there. But just have a look at Udogie there. He's basically asking Brennan Johnson, what's going on? What are you doing? We cannot allow Bukayo Saka to shoot from that position. And I think the inevitable happened. Yes, they got a little bit of luck. But, you know, as you mentioned, they continued to try and play out from the back, Spurs, and Arsenal really enjoyed this early part of the game with all this pressure. Yeah,
of course. You know, again, nothing changes. And the manager's probably said that, you know, even if we concede, what do? You know, we don't change. We don't panic and start changing how we played, especially the way we started the season. It's worked. So no one panic. We just continue the way we play. You see here where, again, Arsenal, you know, aggressive, and Tottenham managed to still play out.
Well, they are, and they're blocking all the passer lanes. They're making it very difficult for Spurs to play out, and they get a lot of joy. The big moment in the first half, this. I mean, Spurs, as I said, we said they were brave, but you just see that Rice has been stepping all the way through. Saka is now in the position at the bottom.
I think that's really clever.
Here's the player that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think that's really clever. It's almost like setting traps. I think if you're looking to go forward and get into these sort of areas, you know, to hit the front line where your forward players are going to make the difference, you have to drop bodies down. And it's important, you know, you see Basuma and Maddison, the time is important to you know, when a goalkeeper gets pressed, you know, the time is important so that the next pass you have to be out there, and you have to find a spare man for you to get out and spring off that.
As we said, talk about being ready, talk about understanding timing. He's already on the move.
Yeah.
Jesus, he already spots that there's an opportunity for his team. Good pressure from Odegaard. This is really poor, actually, from Maddison.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to play that first time. Yeah. You cannot take your time on the ball on the edge of the penalty area. He does.
Yeah.
He loses possession. Great pressure from Arsenal, and I'm pretty sure you're scoring that from there.
Because that's exactly what you want, to be honest. You want Gabriel Jesus, you want him to press there, and on this occasion, obviously, Maddison loses it, but, technically he's so good. 9 times out of 10, he'll keep the ball there, but as soon as he presses, then you can sort of, like, get that ball out, and then, you find your spare man, like I said before, and then you're out. But on this occasion, obviously, he loses it, and he should score.
He loses it, but it comes, as I said, just to reiterate, that bravery all over the pitch. They've gone, there's Zinchenko stepping in there, they've gone man for man. They're basically saying to Spurs that there's only one position you're going to be able to go, and we're going to still take the ball off you. They do it brilliantly. As we said, from that distance, you expect that ball to be in the back of the goal, one way or the other.
Yeah, especially in a game of this size, you expect him to score, or at least hit the target.
I just want to highlight the man on the halfway line there.
I didn't even see that.
Just keep an eye on Saliba it is here. He certainly thought that should have been a goal.
Yeah, of course. He knows that's a massive chance, huge chance.
Yeah, it was a huge chance. And the man who lost the ball there, James Maddison, he was brave, but he spoke about bravery, about what his whole team was set out to do. He made a few quotes after the game. I'll take a look at one of them now. I was really proud of how courageous the lads were and how brave we were. There were a couple of occasions in the first half, myself included, where we gave the ball away. I gave the ball away, edge of the box. They nearly scored, and it's so easy to sink and not carry on playing the way the manager wants us to play. But that's what bravery is. Yeah. And you think Spurs were really brave yesterday? Yeah,
and I do feel like you have to show personality to do that. I think we look at someone like a James Maddison, who, for me, a Tottenham player, if that makes sense, can handle the ball in any sort of area. He's comfortable to do that. And, on that occasion, he lost it. But I think when you, as a player, when a manager says you actually know, because you've done wrong, you come in and sometimes you apologise, and obviously it was lucky that he didn't score. But I think when the manager says no, that's, continue to do that, I think that's pleasing.
Well, they set the momentum going really early in the game. We've showed Arsenal's press, but let's show this now from a Spurs point of view about taking the ball. They obviously went there to have more possession than Arsenal on the day. Have you been involved in many Spurs teams or any team that's gone to the Emirates and thought, we're just going to take more possession than you?
No, not at all. Especially further back, down to Highbury with the Invincibles, you just know that it's going to be a difficult game. At times, you're going to be starved of possession, and you have to be disciplined and organised, but this was completely different.
Well, it wasn't, Van der Ven gets, I'm not saying caught in possession, but he gets put under pressure here, decides to go long, nothing wrong with that. He spots that he's probably outnumbered in that area, but straight from the kickoff, they took the ball, they included the goalkeeper, they tried to make the pitch as big as they possibly could. Arsenal win the ball back. This is 40 seconds later or so, taking the ball, players inside their own penalty area, allowing that Arsenal press to come onto them. As I said, including the goalkeeper, they can see their Arsenal coming in. And I think they, despite that being a difficult way to play, I think the Spurs team wanted that.
I think they wanted that. It's almost like I mentioned before, setting traps. Because I think if you see here, the space, you could, sometimes people talk about, like a long ball. Sometimes not a long ball, actually it's a long pass. You're not playing long ball, and I think that's an option. Because you've got winning runners, and you look at the space there, and even Maddison's position there, he's. I mean, if he gets it there on a half turn, then he's in business. So.
Yeah, well, this is what they were trying to do, wasn't it? Make the pitch as big as possible, work Arsenal as hard as they possibly could, use every inch. Maybe it's a good bit of skill, maybe got a bit lucky, but I'm saying we're a couple of minutes into the game there. We've played one long. We've been under pressure. We've both been involved in teams where you think, should we keep doing this or should we just start going long and playing their half?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it's the old saying, isn't it? The first 10, we go long.
Yeah, first 10, we go long.
For whatever reason, the managers obviously said, no, we play. If we concede, go down, no one panics. We continue playing because, it's worked so far.
Yeah, well, as I said, by this point, I'd be screaming, right, we've tried it twice. This is the third ball. Get this out your feet, play forward. We'll all get up behind it. But this new Spurs team has got a completely different mentality to Spurs teams I've seen in previous seasons.
Patient. There's a Maddison time in there to come down. Song getting into those pockets, and Johnson and Kulusevski staying wide, high and wide. Again, being patient and staying in their positions. I mean, when that man gets on the ball, Maddison, that as forward players, if your movement's good, then he could find you.
And he can't. Basuma, this man Basuma on the ball right now was absolutely outstanding on the day. He was key to the way Spurs took the ball in those areas.
You know, and Basuma, I mean, when he obviously come to the football club, everyone was so excited, and it was just a difficult season for him last season. It just didn't happen for whatever reason. But, you know, this season, you know, he's shown his quality. He looks fit, confident. And again, just like Maddison, you know, we can take the ball in areas that, you know, that he's comfortable in. And, you know, he looks like a really good signing.
Yeah, see, I wanted to put that clip in because even though they didn't get over the halfway line with the ball, they had a limited amount of success. They kept the ball, they moved up the field. And yet, I think I'd still be going in teams. What's the point in that?
Yeah.
What's the point in having all those passes in our own half? We still haven't got into their half. We still haven't got over the halfway line. We're allowing Arsenal to press us. But as that James Maddison quote says, and as we've hearing from this new look Spurs team, that they're different. I mean, look at the setup. I want to just show you. Here's your left back, Udogie. There's your two centre backs, and there's your right back.
Yeah.
Starting play, trying to do something else to create space. Then you've got your three central midfielders who try and do something else. Yeah,
because obviously Arsenal they'll press with a two, so you got your two centre, and then you know your six dropping down, so it's a 3v2, and then obviously create that box in the middle of the pitch to get an overload. So it's I mean, if again the word I keep using is being brave, and I think you just have to be brave to play that way, because if you turn the ball over, then all it is really is one pass and an opportunity at goal.
Yeah, completely agree with that. But from these positions, you are now making spaces where you can potentially receive the ball. You know what the opposition are doing. You've got them man marking you. They've showed that with their press early in the game. So now you can start manipulating them, moving the ball into certain positions.
Yeah.
Doing what it is you want to do. Taking your time on the ball, because Arsenal have worked hard for the first 20 minutes in this game. They can't press like that the whole game. And now suddenly, look, Spurs able to play out. A bit more time on the ball. Basuma involved again.
Yep.
I thought Maddison played well on the day as well. Win the ball back, and then this pass from Pedro Porro, who is your right back. I don't know what he's doing there. But once you break the lines, once you get the ball into there, every bit of work that Spurs have done up until this point is to get this.
Yeah. Because you know, once you get Son, Kulusevski and Johnson, once you get the ball in these sort of areas, then, you know, these players have got the quality to make something happen. And we see here, again, you know, I spoke about Saka. But for me, Kulusevski as well, 1v1, he's brilliant. Sonny, really unselfish there, picks him out. An amazing save, even though he didn't hit it clean, but still a good save.
Yeah, it was a brilliant save. I expected that should have been first goal in the game for Spurs, but they just didn't lose their way. Look, this is the goal. Picking the ball up in the middle of the pitch, Basuma going back to the goalkeeper, making the pitch as big as they possibly could. And that makes the distances for Arsenal to cover even bigger. You saw Declan Rice stepping in momentarily with James Maddison, can't go all the way.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, I mean, this is, once it eventually comes to James Maddison, it's a top piece of skill.
The goalkeeper disappointed with that, not to do a little bit better. But, you know, nothing, you know, the ball comes out here, and this is why, you know, you certain players like this, 1v1, just a bit of brilliance, just something different. And
I mean, he has
and the movement from Son, you know, you talk about people getting across the near post.
One person to aim for in that area, and he picked him out perfectly.
Look at the Arsenal bodies in the box, you know, and, you know, the ball goes wide there, and just the timing of the movement. And, you know, when you think about forward players, and you know, especially like, you know, in academies when you speak to kids, and that the importance of running across the near post, and it doesn't even hit it clean, to be honest. I think any sort of contact, then, you know, it's a goal. But just the movement and the timing of a top quality striker.
Yeah, it was top quality, but they didn't stop in the second half. Arsenal had to make a couple of changes. Jorginho and Havertz came on. Declan Rice and Vieira having to leave the field, both through injury. Yeah, Arsenal got themselves ahead. They got the penalty, scored it in the 54th minute, and this was the reaction to the game. I've seen so many Spurs sides down the years. You've played in some, you've watched them yourselves, that they might go under at that point despite their quality start in the game. This side under Ange Postecoglou doesn't panic.
Yeah, there's no panic, and especially a game like this as well, North London derby. You know what it's like. It's a one-off game. Sort of like form goes out the window before the game. And I think so easy to panic. But great, the team showed great character. There was no panic, and obviously had the belief that we can get back in this game. We're good enough to get back in the game. Nothing changes. We still play the way we're playing, and have that belief that we can still create another chance. And when we do create the chance, we'll take it.
I mean, this guy only just come on. It's hard to get up to speed in top games, but cannot lose the ball in this position.
And especially with the options that he's got, I just can't understand why he made that decision, especially for an experienced player like he is. The options that he's got there to try and go in between both. But I still feel like Maddison's got a lot to do here. And just the way to pass and the first time finish from Son, so relaxed. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, the way to pass. But I didn't expect anything else really from Maddison. The way he's playing, he's been a terrific signing. And the fact that Spurs lost Harry Kane, who does like to drop into those positions. In James Maddison, they've found a player who has got an equally good link-up with Son at the moment, it seems. Yeah,
and I always say that sometimes when, people talk about, players and have you worked on stuff in training, I just feel like when you've got good players, clever players, I think it just comes natural. And obviously Maddison, the amount of times that I've said that, how comfortable he is, he receives the ball anywhere on the pitch. He's got that sort of like, that good arrogance is probably what you need for a top player. And him and Sonia, I mean, they've been excellent together.
Yeah, well, this is, again, after it's now 2-2, they've had that chance. This is what I think we've all come to know as Ange Ball now, isn't it, Rob? Yeah. And Spurs fans must be loving this. This move could have been an absolutely sensational goal, but the last pass, I mean, taking it back in these positions, let me highlight as well. That's Pedro Porro, gone all the way into that position. Sarah's moving out into these positions. You've got movement all over the field. They trust in the process of what.
And what's really good as well, the amount of times you see that they use the goalkeeper. They're not afraid to sort of like cap out, go back to the goalkeeper and reset, and then go from there and wait for the moments where we can find our spare player and then we spring off that.
It's great to see.
It's a great pass. 1v1.
I mean, because of that, though, I mean, people wonder how it is you get up the field, the benefits. I've spoken before, but by Porro being in that position, that's Gabriel. And before we were calling it brave from Arsenal, stepping in to make sure you're not leaving your pressing, your other pressing players exposed. You're trying to make everybody in that area up against somebody. But Spurs do it because now, as we've showed, good bit of play, whip this round the corner.
And then now you look at the numbers there.
Yeah, Gabriel's out of position and he's in a foot race.
Yeah.
And Porro shows
this should have been well, pass should have been a lot better.
3 players getting into good positions as well. As we see, this pass is a good one. Son wins his race in the middle. All you have to do is just leave that anywhere into that gap there with the right amount of pace.
I actually think he tries to actually pick Sonny out.
Yeah.
And I think when you get into these sort of areas, I think it's important to, just try and get it. Don't even look. Just get into the area and then allow the centre forward to come on and finish in that. Instead of trying to actually pick him out, what an opportunity.
Has been too precise there.
I mean, you can see the reaction of the bench and the manager.
Yeah, just highlight a few of them. Pedro Porro's reaction on the substitutes bench.
And your little mate down there.
The manager's reaction. The ball boy's reaction. Down here,
he's an Arsenal fan as well.
The reactions all over the field where they knew how big a chance that moment was. But Spurs kept creating opportunities. And I've seen in the past, Spurs hanging on at games.
Yeah.
And yes, Arsenal had a lot of possession going into the latter stages of the game. But when the opportunity presented itself, the numbers, Spurs are determined to get forward.
And even at this stage, Son's gone off, Maddison's gone off, and still not trying to see the game out and manage it where, we'll get a point, still going forward and still trying to get that winner.
Yeah, that was brilliant from Basuma, who was outstanding all afternoon, I thought. Playing the ball into these positions. Kulusevski had a really good game.
And he's so good in these areas.
And that could have been
a good chance,
so much different for Tottenham. But it was a great performance and so much different from Tottenham away games at Arsenal down the years.
And I mean, you could see without even looking at the stats.
Yep, definitely.
Just in terms of possession and
Just compare Spurs last season to how they are now under Ange Postecoglou. You know, everything's up. You know, scored, XG, shots faced, successful passes. Obviously, this one's
massive.
Is massive.
Massive, because at the end of the day, this is where it counts. You know, this is where it counts. In the final third, having the quality to, you know, create those chances in the final. Of course, you have to execute, but you know, that's the difference in that is massive.
Shows the different style of play. Let's take a little walk over to Leroy. Leroy, have you been impressed with Ange ball?
I'm very impressed with Ange ball. And you know what? I loved the North London derby. But what I also love were the little side stories that are going on. And you know that saying, you know when reporters used to say to you, do you know, Leon, Jermaine, you know, do you watch other teams play? And you always used to say, no, we concentrate on what we do. We don't worry about what other teams do. It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. And it showed in the game because remember a couple of weeks ago when James Maddison scored and he did this celebration with Son. And it was the old darts one. Sarr didn't get it quite right, Jermaine. He's out of sync. But remember that celebration? I'll tell you who was watching. Bukayo Saka, because he did it as well. And that was for you, James, he's saying. That's for you, James. So they're watching exactly what everybody else is going on there, Jermaine.
Yeah.
And what I really liked was, when Saka did that, he was envisioning Arsenal winning the game. And James not being able to come back. But James Maddison came back with this after the game, which I absolutely loved. He said, I got told that Bukayo Saka did the dart celebration. He must have still been doing it when I turned him for the first goal.
Oh, wow.
Who do you think came out on top of that then, Jermaine?
yeah. I hope they're friends.
I think they are friends.
That's
I think
brilliant.
it's really great.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Yeah, it's funny because I was a little bit confused when I obviously saw Saka's celebration. I thought, it makes sense, but that's brilliant. But I love that.
It's really good, isn't it?
Well, it was, and it was a fantastic game. But that's all we've got on that game because now it's time for a break. But coming up after the break, we're going to talk my team, Everton. They were so much better than we've seen them all season. I'm going to see, why was that? Was it down to strikers? Have Brentford got issues with strikers? We'll find out. Welcome back to the show. We're now going to talk Everton. It's a good part of the show, I think, for me, for a change league.
It's been unbearable. It's absolutely unbearable.
Why is he so happy?
Well, it hasn't happened very often, but Everton put in a really good performance, guys.
Look, they were excellent. They were really good. Totally deserved to win the game. I think it's been coming, Jermaine, but it wasn't. I mean, people were saying that Brentford didn't play well. I think Everton deserved a lot of credit.
Yeah, I think they did, to be fair. I thought they mixed up really well. I thought at times where they could play, and they did that well. And when there was times to go long, they did that well as well. So a well-deserved win.
Well, I think that was it. I mean, as we just have a look at the clips, I thought the fact that Everton have now got a focal point in the team, they've got a striker, just see him moving, a little bit of pressure that Branthwaite's under. But this isn't a really direct ball. It's not a precise ball. It's just well, I'll tell you what, I know I've got a big striker on the field. I'm going to pop this up to him, and it's up to everybody who's around him to do the rest.
Well, it's the right ball, you know, because you've got this space in here, and so if you get a decent ball into the front player, now you look at the run of the core into that space, it's on, and so they played it, and it's absolutely the correct ball.
Even Sean Dyche, you know, at the bottom, you can see Sean Dyche. Yeah, you can see Sean Dyche.
I used to have that with Sam Allardyce.
Yeah, just down there.
Yeah, Sean Dyche clearly pointing. He's obviously set this up. So, and I thought that Decore played a lot closer to Beto in this game than maybe he had done in the past. And it's like, Jermaine, you need people to work in tandem. A striker can't play up front on his own no matter what happens. That actually led to the corner kick that got Everton the goal. But a striker needs people around him. Yeah,
especially when the ball goes long. You're going to have... You know, you're going to need people around you that's going to gamble and then you can spring off that. You know, whereas if you're isolated and balls are coming up to your head and you're flicking onto no one and people just stand watching, then it becomes very difficult, especially for a centre forward.
See Everton trying to play out from the back, but once they get into this position, this is not even looking. He's not even looking here, Branthwaite. He's thinking, I'm under a bit of pressure. I know where this is going. Sean Dyche is saying, right, son, you know where we want this to go, and people may say this is not brilliant football, but it's because it's direct and it's long ball, but it's become so effective for Everton.
But the thing is, they've set it up, because you remember the ball, when the first ball that's gone off Branthwaite, instead of just heading it back, he's headed it down into a midfield player.
Yeah.
And they've linked the play and created that space and now created that opportunity, you know, where they've got players in space. and playing together, Jermaine.
Yeah, but people say, I mean people might watch the game and thought, it doesn't look good on the eye, but I mean, there's times Liverpool used to do it all the time. City at times you see, when they set traps and they actually hit Haaland. But then, when you do that, you need the people behind you, and that's going to support.
You, Jermaine, were great at making those runs. Whether you bent the run, whether you come deep, you knew when the timing was going to be right to link up with a big striker that you're playing alongside. Yeah,
I've played with many sort of like forwards that are like the focal point of the team. When I played with Crouchy, there's times where I'd run in behind, or sometimes I'd pretend to go and I'll actually stand in front of him so he can, chest it or knock it down to me, and we can just go from there. But it's so important though. You can't have your centre forward isolated.
Yeah, and the thing is, they did it well. That's a nice ball up there, and he wins the header well, and he's got runners, and they get in. What I'm really impressed with is that they got runners trying to get in the box as well. They're not just watching it; they're actually backing it up as well. And this is good play. They try and get it into the front plays. They win the second ball. They did that well, Leon, didn't they? They won a lot of second ball.
They did. I mean, in a good few games, Everton have done that, but they've not been sure what to do from these positions. Sometimes they overplayed. They played with Neil Maupay, who hadn't been someone they can play the ball forward to. Dan Juma's tried to play up front, but since they've now got Beto and on the bench, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, a player of similar stature, suddenly people like Decore think, well, I trust that if that ball goes up, I need to be around you. It's not going to come back. I don't have to be in this position behind you for when you lose the header. I can now be in aggressive positions to be able to make forward runs. And as turns out on this occasion, he can be the direct pass because he's in such an aggressive position.
Yeah, and Jermaine, I mean, that's what you want. You want the ball in and around those areas. But you want to be fed as a front player. But these are good quality balls forward. And look, it doesn't matter whether you're big, small. You were small, but if it's dropped into you, you're happy all day long.
Instead of like a long ball, like I mentioned before, but it's actually a long pass.
Yeah.
I think if you can do that with quality, when you could like clip it in, so the centre forward can come onto it, or you can ping it where you can just flick on and it's not too high and you're fighting against centre-backs.
And this is where you're at your best.
It can be effective.
Sorry, Jermaine, I was just going to say, this is where you're at your best. So when you're in that position, that's when you wanted it.
That's a nightmare for defenders, because you're in between the two centre-halves, and once you make that run there, if the weighted pass is right, which it is here, and he's so unlucky, I think what he tries to do is probably what I would have done. The goalkeeper goes down and, you just need to execute and just get it on target. But he does the right thing, but just unlucky.
But both Everton strikers now have the ability like that to run in behind. They have the ability to hold the ball up. They have the ability to flick it on. But they also have the ability to give Everton the option to actually just put the ball in from here at times. They don't always need to be moving the ball because he doesn't fancy passing that, because the timer may put his teammate under pressure. So I'll tell you what, I see my big man's in the penalty area. That's not the worst angle. And I trust him to go and head this ball. I trust him to go and win it.
So often, as a centre forward, you're thinking, why don't you put the ball in? Just put the ball in. You're making runs. But they're getting fed, they're getting rewarded for their runs, Jermaine, aren't they?
Yeah, because a lot of people, I mean, you always work on these different passing patterns, the ball goes wide and get that blindside run. But actually, just get it in the danger area, which is what they've done well. And obviously, that man there, just so happy to see him score. And he's obviously alluded after the game about, 1 week you're getting booed by your fans and that, and all of a sudden they love you again and that. But it's just part and parcel of football now. But just delighted to see him get his goal.
Yeah, it was. It was nice.
And body slam his teammate.
He certainly did. Well, I mean, let's look at Everton's XG in their previous games, and look, it suggests that this result and this performance has been coming, Leon, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly witnessed all of them, but I've been at the Fulham game, the Villa game. They were outstanding, actually. They just lacked a goal. I mean, sorry, not the Villa game, the Wolves game. The XG shows how good they were. The shots that they had in each of those games, even Sheffield United, Brentford, they're having efforts on goal. They're causing the opposition to either make saves or make blocks or a number of poor finishes. And now, with a couple of strikers in the team that actually do know where the goal is, then performances start to transpire into victories.
Well, look, I mean, one team who's now got strikers, and now the other team who haven't got a striker, and without Ivan Toney, you just feel that Brentford has suffered, Jermaine. We've got a couple of clips here, of Brentford. And we know that Ivan Toney's been a talisman for quite a few years now in the Championship, in the Premier League. He's been terrific. But just looking at the way now Brentford are having to play, what have they been missing without Ivan Toney in their team?
Well, obviously, they're missing 20 goals. I think it's got 20 league goals last season. I think just that presence, I do feel like opposition are probably thinking, you know what, actually, we can dense the pitch, we can squeeze and make sure those distances are closer. We're closer to each other, so which we can press. But I do believe that if Ivan Toney's playing or he's in the team with his presence, I don't believe that the back four of the opposition would be that brave.
Because I think Ivan Toney's that good that I think he brings a different dimension, and you put him where he should be, Leon. Really.
Yeah, I think he stands there, and I think Brentford have an option for this pass directly up here. Then they've got knockdowns, they've got people that, because he's probably going to win the majority of ball. But because they now don't have that option, the opposition team, Everton, are happy to set them up. We know you're going to go wide. Brentford are playing themselves into trouble. They've got results in the first couple of games, but I just think teams are starting to realise, well, you're not going to go long, so what we'll do is, or if you do go long, you're not going to win the header, we'll set it up to come and press you. Look, Brentford trying to press. Brentford playing out. Everton happy to press.
Yeah.
Brentford not having the quality to really go anywhere.
And I think people will start to realise just how good Ivan Toney is. I don't think you don't realise how good someone is until you miss them. I'm just going to stop it here.
That's interesting.
And you look, this is Vissa. Now, Ivan Toney would be there.
Yeah.
And what a striker of Toney's quality does to a back four, he makes them go back. I think if Ivan Toney plays the back four, and it's only 5 yards, it's not a big amount of space, but it's only 5 yards. Now, if Brentford do want to play, brilliant, they can play in there. But what it does, by going now from back to front, even into Ivan Toney, how often did you see it go from back to front, and then you get these players then coming in and going in on goal? Because the defence have been pushed back because they're worried about the Ivan Toney effect. Yeah,
but obviously you see in this clip here, they're not actually playing against any centre forward, and I know over the years, teams have, you play with a false nine and they dominate possession. But I think with Ivan Toney in the team, it's a completely different game. Like you mentioned before, I don't believe that they'll be so brave because he's a threat in behind and coming to feet. And they just didn't seem like what to do, really. It didn't really seem like they had any patterns where they could go forward and sort of like gain possession.
You see when that ball does go forward, Everton defend it easy again. You see nobody in this vicinity, at all where Ivan Toney could be. And what else it does? I mean, playing into that Everton trap again, having to come back. If Brentford were to play this ball long, Ivan Toney would win the majority, but he doesn't always have to win it. But what it means is these midfielders are very good at winning second balls. That was one of the things they were very good at last season. Toney battling for the ball, them getting up behind it, facing the opposition goal, always running towards the opposition goal. Now they're always facing backwards because their team's overplaying and they've not been as adept at keeping the ball in these positions.
If you were Brentford, Jermaine, would you keep playing the long ball now? I mean, would you just keep doing what you did before, even without Ivan Toney? Put it in there and see if we can deal with it?
Yeah, because obviously now what they're trying to do is, obviously, if they're not used to, playing out from the back and, creating all these part, if they're not used to doing that, all of a sudden it's so difficult to become that team where before, in Ivan Toney in the team, they could afford to go long because you do that, it's going to stick. But it's almost now, they've not got that option and they're trying to play out and, are they, no disrespect to them, but are they good at doing that?
And this emphasises everything you're saying. I think with Ivan Toney in the team, the distances are a little bit further back. Everton are coming from deeper rather than coming from higher up positions to press. Brentford playing themselves into trouble with those types of passes rather than going along, putting them under pressure, and suddenly, because of that, causing themselves trouble. And opportunities you'd take, Jermaine?
I'd love that. But again, like I just mentioned, if you're that team that you want to try and play out, do something completely different that you're used to.
Yeah.
And obviously you give the ball away there and, it's one pass and, you can see another goal.
This shows how much they've missed him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The goals since promotion, Ivan Toney's had 28% of them, and that's massive when you miss that from your team.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you're missing your centre forward that scores that many goals, and not only goals, he brings so much. He's so much more than just a goal scorer, to be honest. Fantastic footballer. And when you miss that, it's really difficult. But other players, got to step up and produce. It's just, the demand of the game.
Well, you played in a team at Spurs with Berbatov and Keane. How important is it to spread the goals around? I know you probably prefer to score them all yourself, but as a team, how important is it to spread the goals around? Because, Ivan Toney's been out for a number of months and he's already clearly still ahead in the goals tallies for Brentford.
So important, so important. And even as a forward, sometimes you get that thing where, you know, you're at a club and you're linked with another centre forwards, and, you know, some players don't like that. But in fact, you know, when there's more quality coming into the door, you know, and you can spread the goals around, you've got that sort of quality. Other people, you know, someone else is scoring 15 goals. If you're scoring 15 goals, then of course it helps the team, and that's so important. But like you said, when you look at those numbers there, they're certainly missing them. Absolutely.
One thing I noticed was the celebration. We've already seen it, the celebration after Calvert-Lewin's goal. I just wondered, Leon, is this a metaphor for Everton's season? They're going to reach the heights, but they're maybe going to drop very quickly, like Decore did.
As long as we reach the heights first, I'll be all right with dropping off a touch. But
it's unbelievable celebration. I don't think we'll see that one again. And talking of celebrations, Pedro Neto, I mean, he's a great player. I think he's an outstanding footballer. Yeah. But I think he's got too many celebrations in his back pocket. I didn't know he didn't know which one to do. I mean, because it's a great goal he scores against Luton. But I mean, there's 7 celebrations. There's one. That's 2.
That's your one.
That's 3. High neat. That's 4. Yes, that's 5. That's 6. There's 6. He surely can't have any more. No, he can't. That's 7. And he's got another one there with the shirt. It's 8. He's done all these celebrations in one goal. Maybe he doesn't think he's going to score again this season, Jermaine.
Yeah, probably just get them all out there, you know what I mean? But like...
You didn't need to do that because you knew you were going to score next week, didn't you?
Exactly, mate.
Maybe he's had them stored up for a while. Maybe that's the issue. Well, that's it. Talking Everton in part 2. But stay with us for part 3, where we're going to talk Newcastle and Sheffield United. 8 different Premier League scorers for Newcastle. Paul Heckenbotter's team really suffered. We'll take a look. Welcome back, and we're going to go straight to Bramall Lane now, where Sheffield United had a torrid afternoon. Newcastle set a Premier League record, 8 different scorers in an 8-0 victory. I mean, it was some afternoon for Newcastle. I think somebody alongside us was just saying he'd be really upset if he only scored one.
I would.
In an 8-0 victory.
I mean, 8 different scores. I had Newcastle fans come out and say, it's amazing, they had 8 different scores. You'd be gutted if you only got one goal out of 8.
I know it sounds crazy. Selfish centre forwards and that, but actually I would be like, could have... I mean,
how many did you get when you scored 9? How many did you get?
Just the 5.
Just the 5. Okay, we'll leave it at that. But it was a terrible day for Sheffield United. And to be honest, I felt for them because you get into this... We've been on the end of when we got beat. Obviously not 8. But when you get into this sort of situation, it's so hard to get out of. And we've got some examples of it here. You know, Newcastle in good possession. And you watch them and they're in a stage where they think they're pressing, but they're not. They're just watching the game go by. Yeah, obviously they're, you know, in a low block, and, you know, Newcastle, of course, show a lot of quality here, but at the same time, like you said, not really pressing, they're not really aggressive. They just seems like they're in a good shape, end up conceding. I
mean, this is the second half, and they were already 3-0 down at the start of the second half, but it was just naive mistakes. I mean, first of all, you can't let anybody come through the middle. One of these 2 players has to come out. Once that's happened, what you cannot do, because you're actually set up in a back 3 there, you can't charge out from that position to concede the space. Then, as the 2 centre-halves there have to come over and cover, they don't do it, and it's all just so easy for Newcastle. That's a simple pass. How Callum Wilson has got that much space?
The gaps just seem to be so big all over the pitch. You know, no one's close enough. No one seems to be talking. And I mean, look how much space Callum gets up. I mean, it's like a training ground goal.
It is. It's like when you're playing against no one in training. And, you know, I just felt that they got into a mould where they're in shape, and they're just going to pause it there. They think, OK, they're in shape. And you practice that, the shape looks decent. But the guy on the ball has got absolutely no pressure on him whatsoever. He's actually, he's on the halfway line, and there's no one there. No one even anticipated to go and put him under pressure. And then when you get into that mode, things become very difficult, because this is a good side, Newcastle. Now, the next guy is in acres of space again. That's one pass, and still Sheffield United players nowhere near them. Jermaine.
Yeah, and people obviously coming at their slots. Again, no communication, organising. You see Callum Wilson on a half turn there, and it's just one pass. And again, Almiron, you know, I bet he cannot believe how much space he's got. One pass, and he's one-on-one with a goalkeeper.
Yeah, exactly. And Leon, you wanted to talk about Davis.
Yeah, I mean,
in this position.
No, I know Tom well. He's a friend of mine, but I don't think he'll be too happy with the fact he can see the ball. He can see this run coming. He's in a great position. The centre-half's out of his slot. As this run comes, you have to match it. I don't understand how he's not seeing it come, how he's not matched it, how he's not tracked him in. He's just still hovering. Then he seems to react. And I thought, as a team, Sheffield United were very reactive rather than trying to make things happen, rather than being in the right position to do things. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a big negative result?
Not I have done before, but like you mentioned on before, when you're in that, it's so difficult to get out of it. When nothing seems to be happening, it seems that turning the ball over, that players not really doing anything, no communication and just giving away silly opportunities.
You're right. Well, to be fair, he's given the ball away, and he has worked hard to really get back. And then what happens when you're in this situation? Just watch what happens to him now. He gets back, and he makes a great tackle, but it falls to the feet of Kamarish.
Yeah.
And that's we're in that game where nothing just seems to go right. That's unlucky. He's done the right thing. He's reacted, but they didn't get a lot right. This is Tom Davies again. I mean, he's put.
I love this goal.
Through. Yeah.
Yeah. So calm. That's beautiful.
The sort of finish you would love.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that was the feeling, wasn't it?
Stuart McCall.
That was the feeling at Sheffield United. It was a really torrid day, but it was not in tune with the results before. And I don't mean that in accordance to the losses, but before that, as we see, the losses were all by a close margin, just by a 1-goal victory. They were leading going into the 98th minute at Tottenham the week before. Do you think the manner in which they lost the Tottenham game maybe has affected them going through this week?
Maybe, but it can't. It can't. I think you have to put that to the side. I think players, especially your senior players, you have to reset and go again. Of course, we all knew it was going to be difficult for them. It's a big challenge, coming up from obviously the Championship into the Premier League with the quality in the Premier League now. But it's important that I think they just, they try and find a way. Because when you watch that game, you look at them and you think, how are you trying to play?
It's funny because you asked me what would you do as a manager after that, and I'd say come in on Monday. I'd give them a couple of days off. But as a manager, it kind of defines what Sheffield United have to do going. The next game, keep a clean sheet.
That's it.
Don't worry about anything else. We are just going to try and keep a clean sheet. And it takes all the pressure off the players. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we're going to stop the opposition playing. But you look at the players that have come in, and you know what? These are good players. But they are good players at Championship level, and they've yet to prove it in the Premier League. Archer had a great season at Villa last year. Hammer was at Coventry. I think they'll be good players. But what do you think of that recruitment in terms of where Sheffield United are now?
It's difficult, isn't it? Like I mentioned before, obviously it's going to be difficult. And obviously these players coming in, it's a lot of pressure. They were fantastic last season. It's a different demand in the Premier League. But I just feel like, and I had a situation at Sunderland where, you mentioned about, actually, let's just try and keep clean sheets. Go back to basics, try and keep clean sheets. And if we can create chances off that, when we do create the chances, we have to be ruthless and take them because they know many might not come along. But it's going to be difficult.
Well, a lot of their summer signings were youthful or yet to be proven. But these are the players that were there last season that they've now lost. So, you've lost two of your star players. We can see quite there. Two of your experienced players have moved on. Big names in the dressing room. So do you feel that Sheffield United are weaker this season than they were last season in the Championship?
I think they could be weaker in terms of, Billy Sharp, someone who, say, a club legend. And to be honest, I was surprised when they let him go, to be honest. I think just to have his experience and, someone like that around the place, I thought would have been massive for the changing rooms. But, they have to sort of especially with this result anyway, try and put this one to the side and regroup and reset and go again. Yeah,
I think he would have been brilliant for Cameron Archer, to have someone like Billy Sharp around the area, around the place, just to help him. But look, it was one of the biggest defeats in Premier League history, and it's difficult to come back from, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. Southampton managed it. I think that they ended up finishing around about mid-table because of, I think that they had enough time left in the season to get back. But, Nottingham Forest, I think, got relegated that season. It's a difficult thing to get over mentally when you've lost so heavily. But Sheffield United have got to try and find a way of, first of all, as you said, with maybe clean sheets, but they've got to try and find a way of turning this around to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you're conceding 8 goals at home, again, if it's away from home, of course it's still bad, but at the same time, you can sort of understand it. New promoted team, go to Newcastle. But to concede 8 goals at home, of course, the manager and everyone involved in the football club would be disappointed.
You did spot something that happened at Bramall Lane?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, you saw it at Craven Cottage, you know, when things are getting a bit boring, people seem to want to go to my book, Jermaine. You know, I think that's my book. It was 7-0 at the time, so she felt, I want to do something interesting, so I definitely think that's my book.
Is your book that thick?
Well, it's got a lot of pictures in it, let's put it that way. But
many words.
It works. It keeps people's attention, so I'm really pleased that she did that for me.
All right.
Love that.
I love that too. Yeah. Well, let's have a look at the newly promoted teams and how they've started the season. I mean, I think everybody thought it might be difficult for them, but did you expect at least one of them to have had a win by this stage?
Maybe Burnley. I think when you look at the 3 teams there, I think Burnley are the ones that they've got like an identity. You can see what they're trying to do. They play the right way, create chances. Yeah, they've got a young team. But if I do look at the 3 teams there, Burnley are the ones really, I probably would have thought they would have got a win.
Yeah.
All 3 teams, promoted teams, stayed up last season, Leroy. Do you give these 3 teams the chance of staying up themselves?
I don't think all 3 will stay up, in all honesty. But I agree with Jermaine about Burnley. And the reason why I think Burnley have the best chance of staying up is because I think they'll recruit in January. I think Vincent Kompany will get support. And the way that they play, I think they'll be able to recruit the players in because of Vincent Kompany. I think it'd be more difficult for Luton and Sheffield United. So I think out of the 3, Burnley definitely got the best chance of staying up.
Well, Luton and Burnley play each other, I think, a week on Tuesday, so that will be crucial in their chance to stay in the Premier League. Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. It's been a pleasure. It was a record-breaking weekend. Not so much enjoyable for Sheffield United. Newcastle, 8 different scorers. Who'd have thought that for the first ever time? That's all for us. Goodbye.